We can't sugarcoat this. Shin Godzilla is one of the most nightmare-inducing, bed-wetting abominations of all that is holy that we have ever seen on screen. An absolute titan of terror, and everything about this creature, from its presentation, its lore, and its design, brings forth the realization that humanity is absolutely doomed within its presence. Released in 2016, Shin Godzilla went into a vastly different direction, yet refreshing at the same time for the Godzilla franchise, becoming the first Toho Godzilla film to completely stand alone, not even connecting it to the original 1954 film. It had been 12 years since they put out any kind of Godzilla movie, and this one swung for the fences and became not just one of my favorite Godzilla movies, but a movie I legitimately find to be a very unique piece of art that just doesn't come around too often. Directed by Hideaki Anno, famous for the creation of Neon Genesis Evangelion, and co-directed by Shinji Higuchi, the resulting kaiju film would be a serious and suspenseful picture that brought forth the terror of recent natural disasters and tsunamis that Japan was experiencing at the time, while also keeping true to the themes of nuclear weapons and the dark side of humanity's involvement in powers beyond our control. Watching the film once again, every Godzilla scene feels like a natural disaster. The destruction sequences are the best they have been in years, and unlike many of the more action-oriented or fun Godzilla movies, this one has always felt close to that feeling of sheer hopelessness that the original was, yet at the same time also happens to be an uplifting film in many respects. I love the opening of the movie because, just like the characters in the film, it throws you in with no time to prepare for anything that's going on. You are thrown right into the middle of confusion and despair right from the get-go, and flooded with exposition of people sitting in boardrooms talking about scientific and political topics that, upon first viewing, mostly go right over your head just simply because they're already in mid-discussion before you even have a chance to settle into the movie. And then a giant tail rises from the ocean that's heating up exponentially, and you know something horrific is about to go down. Scenes cut from room to room, character to character, and it's all rather quick. Normally, I like to settle in with a character a lot more. Having dozens of characters all introduced at once is a little overwhelming, but in Shin Godzilla, it's so effortlessly engaging that you're constantly wondering what the next big discovery about the creature is going to be and how the government and the scientists are going to respond to it. But the tragedy is, while the important political figures all sit in rooms and discuss which actions they should take, it's the civilians that suffer. Just as we're told that there is some kind of giant creature, but don't worry, it can't survive on land, the motherfucker starts tearing its way through land. Unique to any other Godzilla is that Shin possesses several different forms. In fact, the defining characteristic of this Godzilla is its capacity to evolve at a rapid rate, taking into account its environment and the things that cause damage to it. As humanity tries desperately to keep up with what Godzilla can do, it constantly shifts into new stages of its evolution, and we cannot follow. Its first form isn't seen other than the tail, but I like to think it has several smaller forms before it even got to this. In fact, in my own little headcanon, I would love to believe that this creature started out so insignificantly small that it would never be noticed, but after feeding on radiation for years, it got bigger and bigger from whatever seafloor dwelling entity that it was. Its second form is this goddamn thing, which definitely feels like it's grown legs for the first time and is just excited to use them. The way that it rolls on its belly and that face, I cannot with that face. I can't tell what expression this Godzilla form is making, but it freaks me right out. Actually, a lot of people say that this rapid evolution, along with its mutations, is an extremely painful experience for the creature, and that Shin Godzilla exists in a constant state of agony. Blood gushes from its gills, maybe as it's learning to breathe on the surface. Whatever the case, you can imagine that this thing is just barreling toward you at full speed, has no idea where it is or what's going on, and the destruction it's causing now isn't even anything yet. The next form is closer to a recognizable image of Godzilla beginning to stand upright and developing its tiny little arms. But this also seems like an incredibly painful process. I would assume that Godzilla has no control over his evolutions, and his body is just continuously forcing itself through each and every stage. And that's probably happening on an internal level, like probably swapping out his gills for lungs, practically suffocating him in the process as it tries to figure out a new way of breathing. His radioactivity also makes him burn at incredibly high temperatures that states that he develops his own internal cooling system to recharge the energy, and all this is going on while the creature is probably like, what the fuck is happening to me? What is also in my head canon, but there might be some evidence to suggest it, or maybe it's been confirmed somewhere, I don't really know. I'm only making my assumptions based on watching the movie, so bear with me, but I also believe that Godzilla is consistently becoming more intelligent as he evolves as well. I think this can be shown in his retaliations against humanity, as well as things suggested at the end of the film that I'll get into. His fourth form is the most iconic. This is Shin Godzilla as we know him, and for the majority of the movie. A hideous, gigantic monstrosity that, other than the anime Godzilla, is the biggest Toho Godzilla ever at 118 meters, or around 387 feet tall. It is an unfathomable Lovecraftian terror that for the first time, I think ever in a Godzilla movie, actually made me feel despair when the tanks and missiles don't have any effect on it. You expect to see the army scenes in every Godzilla movie, and it's been done countless times. Godzilla's never been harmed by missiles. Well, we don't count that one. But the way that this scene is shot in Shin Godzilla actually feels like true hopelessness. They're throwing everything imaginable at him, and you just think that if something like this did appear, what could we possibly do? But then it gets even worse. In perhaps the most iconic scene in the whole movie, this Godzilla develops its atomic breath to combat the military, and it's unlike anything we've ever seen before. Its jaw unhinges like some kind of demonic snake, and it shoots at first what looks like pure heat, and then concentrates itself into a thin and powerful beam of energy. It takes out everything, and dare I say, cinema peaked in this moment. And unseen in any other Godzilla movie, Shin Godzilla is also capable of firing this energy from the spikes on its back, taking out multiple enemies at once. The scene itself is backdropped with an angelic choir, almost to imply that this creature is, in fact, a god, and this is its wrath. The inspiring side of the film is that to avoid using nuclear weapons, Japan, with some help from other parts of the world, are able to develop a method of defeating the creature by forcing it to expend its energy and then deep freezing it from the inside out so it doesn't have a chance to charge up more. Many people sacrifice their lives in the process, but ultimately they are able to make the plan work. So as hopeless as most of the movie feels, there is a silver lining towards the end. However, the final shot of the movie is the most haunting one yet. Frozen, Godzilla's tail shows evidence that he was beginning to undergo yet another evolution, but this one looks like the body was splitting off into multiple smaller incarnations of humanoid-looking Godzillas. When I first saw this, it blew my mind, because my imagination, once again, my headcanon was that in order to overcome humanity, the creature was going to take on a similar form, learning that this humanoid-like form would be useful based upon its defeat here. In other words, fighting fire with fire. I also assumed that by expanding into more humanoid creatures that its intelligence would once again continue to advance at a rate that maybe after 3 or 4 more stages and evolutions would be just as, if not more intelligent than humans. But that's just my personal theory. I'm not claiming that was the intent of the movie. Now, obviously, this would probably be too abstract and weird for a Godzilla movie, and by that point, it would be turning into something else. Which is kind of why I think the final shot of the movie is perfect. How we just narrowly missed a worldwide extinction by a paper-thin margin. That, to me, is scary as hell. But if you want to take these ideas a little bit further, a lot of the Shin Godzilla concept art shows way more detailed versions of what these creatures could have possibly been. Again, this is all concept art, so I wouldn't dare call it canon in any way, but it's fun to think about what they were cooking up or where this could have gone. Just looking at some of these designs, if you were not aware of their origins, maybe you would even mistake them for angels. And what if that were the case? If Shin Godzilla was the god and these were like its messengers? Or what if it was all leading to some kind of true ascendancy beyond the physical form? I don't know if there are any limits to this creature's evolution and what that eventual final form would be. And considering the creator of this movie came from working on Evangelion, I feel like these ideas are pretty valid. You can take the creator away from Evangelion, but you can't take Evangelion out of the creator. The horror of Shin Godzilla comes from many different levels. It's the fear of the unknown, it's the fear of not knowing how to handle something, it's the fear of witnessing a disaster beyond comprehension, feeling helpless, feeling powerlessness, and the fear of being in the presence of maybe humanity's extinction. How would we face that? Now, this is not how I would want every Godzilla movie to be, but as a one-off experiment to play with some of these larger ideas, I am absolutely here for it. It's one of my favorites, and overall, one of my favorite kaiju movies in general. Shin Godzilla left an everlasting impression on me, and at the time, like I said, there hadn't been a Toho movie since 2004, so when I finally watched this, it really felt like we were stepping into a new era. But I know opinions on this movie can be very mixed. Some people love it, some people hate it. I don't know. What do you guys think? Is this one of the scariest Godzilla movies of all time, or is it just an overhyped little tadpole? Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Also, give this video a like and a share if you would like, because it would help me out in the algorithm. If you want to support the channel on a deeper level, I do have links to my Patreon channel memberships and all the social media links where you can follow me down below. Other than that, guys, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. I'll talk to you next time.